All right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something that, well, to be honest, uh, didn't initially strike me as like the most thrilling topic, but stick with me here. We're going to be talking about cubicles.
Cubicles.
Yes, cubicles, specifically modern cubicles. And before you tune out thinking about those like drab gray boxes from the 80s, let me tell you, I had the exact same thought, but then I came across this article
Yes.
from Modern Cubicles, Privacy, Affordability, and Style in Today's Workspace. And let me tell you, it really challenged my preconceived notions.
I can imagine. I mean, cubicles have kind of gotten a bad rap over the years, haven't they?
Oh, for sure.
But the thing is, the way they're being designed and utilized these days is, well, it's actually pretty remarkable. We're not talking about those soul-crushing boxes anymore.
Right, and that's exactly what we're going to be digging into today. So for our listener, let's set the stage a bit. You're looking for a workspace solution, right? You need a place to, get things done, be productive, but you're maybe feeling a little stuck. Like a private office would be awesome, but man, those costs.
It's a lot.
And then there's the co-working space option, which, can be great for the energy and the, networking and all that. But sometimes you just need a little more,
A little more focus.
a little more privacy.
Exactly. And this is where this article comes in. It basically makes a case for modern cubicles being like the Goldilocks solution. Not too hot, not too cold.
Right, like that sweet spot in between the extremes. And it does a really interesting job of laying out this comparison. Like, okay, here's how a cubicle stacks up against a private office. Here's how it stacks up against a co-working space. And in both cases, it highlights the ways in which cubicles kind of win.
Okay, I got to tell you, one thing that really jumped out at me when I was reading this was the claim that these modern cubicles can actually boost your focus, like compared to open workspaces or even working from home. Now, I'm a little skeptical, I'll admit. How on earth is that possible? Yeah, it does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, we've all heard about the benefits of open offices for collaboration and all that.
Right. And working from home, well, that's supposed to be like the ultimate in flexibility and comfort. So how does a cubicle, of all things, actually make you more focused?
Well, the article breaks it down pretty convincingly. It basically argues that both open offices and home environments are full of distractions. In an open office, you've got, conversations, phones ringing, that constant hum of activity. And at home, well, you've got the laundry, the TV, maybe kids running around.
Oh, yeah? I know all about that.
Right? So the idea is that a modern cubicle, by contrast, is actually designed with noise-dampening materials, so you're not bombarded by every little sound. Plus, you have that dedicated space, that physical separation from everything else that's going on. And they talk about how the ergonomic furniture, a good chair, a well-designed desk.
It all plays a part.
It all plays a part in minimizing physical discomfort and interruptions. So you can really settle in and concentrate on the task at hand.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like creating that little bubble of focus. And that actually leads me to another thing that really surprised me, because it's not just about the cubicle itself anymore. It's about all the perks that come with it. Like the article talks about meeting rooms, kitchen access, sometimes even receptionist services. That's stuff you'd pay an arm and a leg for with a private office.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that makes this modern cubicle model so appealing. It's like you get access to this whole ecosystem of support and amenities without that, without breaking the bank.
And speaking of breaking the bank, the article really hammered home the financial advantages of modern cubicles, which, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? It's going to be more budget-friendly than renting a whole office space. But the article actually breaks down just how much more affordable it is. And it's pretty significant when you factor in things like utilities and maintenance and all that.
Oh, yeah. You've got your rent, your utilities, cleaning, internet.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
Exactly. And then there's the flexibility factor, which I know for our listener who's probably, on the go, juggling multiple projects, flexibility is key. And the article really emphasizes that with these modern cubicle setups, you're not locked into those scary long leases that you often see with traditional office rentals.
Tell me about it. Those long-term leases can be a real deal breaker.
Right. But here, it's like you need a space for a few months, no problem. A year, you got it. And then if your needs change, you can adjust accordingly.
Right. It's all about adapting to the way we work today, right? Which is often, project-based, remote, all over the place. And these modern cubicle spaces, they really seem to get that. They give you that, that have your cake and eat it too kind of solution.
Yeah.
Like you want a dedicated professional space when you need it. You got it. But you don't want to be tied down when you don't. No problem.
It's that sweet spot we were talking about, that balance. And I was just reading a study the other day about how productivity can actually suffer when people try to work from home all the time.
Really?
Yeah. And it makes sense when you think about it, because all those distractions we were talking about earlier, they're like amplified at home. You've got, I mean, I know I do, the laundry that needs folding, the dishes piling up, and then there's the kids, the pets. It's just tough to really switch into that work mode when you're surrounded by all that home mode stuff.
It's so true. That physical and mental separation, it's so important.
Yeah.
In this article, they really hit on that. They suggest that having a dedicated workspace outside the home can actually make you more productive in the long run. Because you're signaling to your brain, okay, this is work time.
It's creating that boundary. And speaking of boundaries, we have to talk about the style element here, because when I first saw the phrase stylish cubicle, I'll admit, I kind of chuckled. Like, those two words just didn't seem to go together.
I know, right?
But then I actually started reading about how these modern cubicles are designed. And they're talking about sleek, modern designs, often around 6 by 6 feet, which, is a decent amount of personal space.
Yeah, not too cramped.
Not too cramped at all. And they're decked out with ergonomic furniture, those fancy chairs and adjustable desks, and all sorts of customizable features. It's a far cry from those gray boxes of the past.
Oh, absolutely. And the article even name drops a company, Brandnook, as an example of a provider that's doing modern cubicles right. They really emphasize that it's not just about functionality anymore. It's about creating a workspace that's actually aesthetically pleasing.
Right, a place where you actually want to be.
Yeah.
So all in all, this article is really making me rethink my whole stance on cubicles.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging some preconceived notions, but the real question is, could a modern cubicle be the perfect workspace solution for you?
It makes you wonder if we were a little too quick to, write off the cubicle altogether. I mean, if you think about it, you get that privacy and focus of a private office, but without like the isolation and the big price tag. And compared to a co-working space, you have way more like structure and a dedicated space that's truly your own.
Yeah, it's like they took all those pain points we have with the more traditional workspaces and they flipped them into like advantages. And plus, it's definitely resonating with people, especially with, the rise of these hybrid work models and this need for more like flexibility.
Yeah. And speaking of flexibility, I was really fascinated by how the article talked about how you're not chained to those long leases that can be such a headache with regular offices. You need a workspace for, I don't know, a few months, no problem, a year, you got it. For someone like me who kind of gets a little twitchy at the thought of a long-term commitment, that's a huge selling point for me.
Well, it's not just about avoiding commitment. It's about having those options, because things change quickly, especially these days. And this setup really lets you, adapt and change with the changing times.
Absolutely. And another thing that really caught my eye was how they talked about the plug and play aspect. You don't have to waste time setting up Wi-Fi and, hunting for furniture, dealing with all that logistical stuff. It's all ready to go.
Right. It's just like you walk in and boom, you can get straight to work.
Right. No messing around. Okay, now I'm starting to see why the article calls these cubicles modern. This is not your grandpa's office. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's amazing what a little, design and innovation can do. It's like they took a concept that had kind of become synonymous with drudgery and transformed it into something that is functional and even, kind of inspiring in a way.
All right. So let's say our listener is intrigued by all this. Where do they even begin to look for these modern cubicle spaces? I know the article mentioned Brandnook, but I imagine there are other, companies out there doing this, right?
Absolutely. The Brandnook just seems to be a leading example. But yeah, definitely check out, a simple Google search, something like modern cubicles or flexible workspaces, and you'll be surprised. A lot will pop up.
Yeah. And I bet there are even online platforms specifically for these kinds of providers. I don't know. It's like apartment hunting, but for your work life.
Exactly. And just like apartment hunting, it's important to do your research, compare prices, look at the amenities offered, consider the location, and of course, always read those reviews. See what other people who have actually used this space have to say.
Right. You want to make sure you're getting the right fit for you and your needs. So it seems like the humble cubicle has, gone through this pretty major transformation. It's come out the other side looking looking pretty darn good.
Yeah, it really has. And it's definitely like shedding that old image. It's making a strong comeback. And it's a legitimate, even desirable workspace solution for a growing number of, professionals these days.
I never thought I'd say this, but cubicles are kind of cool now.
Well, cool might be pushing it a bit, but they're
Yeah.
definitely not, those dreary, soul-crushing spaces of the past. They've adapted, they've evolved, and they're clearly like filling a need in this crazy work landscape that we have today.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll all be fighting over the coolest cubicle on the block.
Well, perhaps.
Mhm.
But for now, let's leave our listener with something to think about. Given all the advantages that we've been talking about, the privacy, the affordability, the flexibility, the style, could a modern cubicle be the perfect solution for your workspace needs?
It's definitely worth considering. And if you're even a little bit curious, we encourage you to check out, Brandnook or other, similar providers in your area. You might just be surprised at what you find.
Now, remember earlier when we were talking about those sleek, modern designs? Well, there's a reason why aesthetics are like playing such a big role in this whole modern cubicle revolution. It's not just about, looking good. It's about creating a space that actually like makes you feel good too.
Right. It's like we spend so much of our lives at work. Why not make that space, a place where we actually like enjoy being?
Exactly, exactly. And this article, they talk about how design can impact our mood, our productivity, even our creativity. There's a whole field of study dedicated to this. It's called environmental psychology.
Oh wow. So it's not just some like fluffy make it pretty thing. There's actual science behind it.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the key findings is that when people feel comfortable and inspired by their surroundings, they tend to perform better. So
Yeah.
so it makes sense that these, modern cubicle providers are putting so much emphasis on the aesthetics.
Yeah, that makes me think about some of the co-working spaces I've seen, that are all decked out with like funky furniture and cool art on the walls and all that. Do you think those design elements, do you think they actually contribute to that like collaborative vibe they're going for?
Yeah, I think it's very possible.
Hmm.
Very possible. Creating a space that feels inviting and stimulating, it can definitely, encourage that interaction and idea sharing.
So if we bring this back to cubicles, then maybe those sleek designs and customizable features, maybe they're not just about like looking good. Maybe they're actually helping to create a more positive and productive work environment.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's something I think a lot of people, kind of overlook when they think about cubicles. They get stuck on that old image, of the drab gray box. But these modern cubicles are really challenging those assumptions. They're showing that a cubicle can be, a place where you can actually thrive.
Now that we're talking about design, I'm curious about like the specifics. I know the article mentioned that a lot of these modern cubicles are around 6 by 6 feet. Is there a reason for that size?
Well, 6 by 6 feet seems to be kind of that
Yep.
sweet spot, in
Yeah.
terms of providing enough personal space without feeling cramped, while still being, compact enough to fit into a variety of different office layouts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that balance thing again. I bet there's a lot of thought that goes into the layout and the ergonomics and everything too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
A lot of these providers are partnering with furniture designers and ergonomics experts to create workstations that are not only stylish but they also, support good posture, reduce strain, promote, overall well-being.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're taking, all the best aspects of office design and like packing them into this compact, affordable and flexible package.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's why we're seeing this resurgence of interest in the cubicle.
Yeah.
It's no longer seen as this, symbol of corporate drudgery. It's evolving into something that actually, empowers people to work, smarter, better, more comfortably.
It's interesting how we went from these open office plans, right, which were supposed to be all about collaboration and like breaking down barriers and all that, and now we're seeing this like renewed appreciation for having your own space. It's like the pendulum swung back the other way.
It is a really fascinating shift.
Yeah.
But it really highlights this important point that there's no like one size fits all solution when it comes to workspaces. What works for one person, might be a total nightmare for someone else. So it really comes down to finding the the environment that allows you to do your best work.
Right. And for some people that might very well be a modern cubicle. Like it really challenges those preconceived notions that we were talking about earlier.
It does. It does. And I think it's all about, just keeping an open mind and questioning those assumptions, because it's so easy to get stuck in those mental models of, what a cubicle is or what a private office should be. But the reality is these things are constantly changing, and sometimes the most unexpected option ends up being the perfect fit.
Yeah, it's like that saying, don't knock it till you try it, Maybe we've all been a little too quick to judge the cubicle without really seeing how it's evolved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this article we've been talking about, it really does a great job of challenging those assumptions and presenting the modern cubicle as a viable, even desirable workspace solution for a growing number of professionals.
So what's the takeaway then for our listener? What should they be thinking about after this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is to be open to exploring all those different options, right? Don't be afraid to think outside that traditional office box, even if it means considering something you might have, written off in the past.
Like a cubicle.
Like a cubicle, exactly. Do your research, compare the pros and cons, and just consider what's most important to you in a workspace. Right?
Yeah.
And it just might be that a modern cubicle, just might tick all those boxes.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of modern cubicles. And you know what? I'm a little sad to see it end.
It has been a journey of discovery for sure. Who knew we could spend, this much time talking about cubicles and make it interesting?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think we both learned a lot about how workspaces are evolving and how important it is to, find that right fit for your individual needs.
Absolutely. And hey, perhaps one of us will be, working from a stylish modern cubicle sometime soon.
Yeah, maybe we'll even be cubicle neighbors. But until then, we'll keep exploring this ever-changing world of work and sharing our discoveries with you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And we'll catch you next time.